did not engage any kind of activity that tweaked the natural state of the environment. So due to that, we were following a very natural state, and there wasn't any emission of fossil fuels back then. Next slide. So this is the human life clock, and what you can see from this is like uh, just looking at this picture, what you can define is like almost 95% of the human life that we have, the humans that we've lived in this planet, we've been hunter gatherers, and almost 94% of us were engaged during our time here in this planet. We have engaged in agricultural activities, but only a fraction of the entire the percent is what the human has been engaged in industrialization. So in such a fraction of time, we've been able to uh, alter the entire atmospheric uh, uh, the 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 climate of the planet. So it is actually significant, the type of emission that has happened post industrial revolution. Next slide. So are these changes significant? That the changes that we're talking about, 1 degree, 2 degree rise of temperature, are these changes significant? Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So it seems it is significant because, like, if we follow the present trend of what the greenhouse gases there up in the atmosphere, it is estimated that in 2050 all the coastal cities would be underwater. So just to give you a perspective, I think we know how serious it is, and that how even a minute a change in the temperature could actually alter the entire the scenario of the environmental scenario of the planet. Next slide. And also, what you can see is like there are major consequences associated with this significant changes. Is that there are going to be heat kills. We've been already noticing that uh, the tropical places where I come from in the West Bengal, in the lower belts, there are people like who've been like heat strokes are happening because there's a certain increase in the temperature. Also, that we are running out of food because there are droughts, uncertain, unpredictable droughts happening all over the planet, and also substantial species extinction is happening because now all those species that are dependent on those the plants or the prey species are eventually being uh, is being affected by the climate change, or by direct or indirectly. And also there is a rapid spread of infectious disease because as we see up in the the glaciers, these glaciers actually acts as a time bomb because they are uh, up in the high altitude region. You see that there are a lot of viruses that has been actually been waiting there to come out and start infecting. We've all and infecting, and we've also seen that like how the apple belts in Ladakh also, to give you a perspective, has shifted because then and how the pests that used to be restricted to the lower belts have now actually started to move upwards in the upper higher altitudes, because now these upper regions that used to be uh, unfavorable for them have started being favorable due to the change in the climatic condition. Uh, Next slide, please. Yeah. So, in the present context, what we can say is climate change is not the change in the temperature, but the rate at which uh, the the temperature is changing. So normally, what I explain the students at the school through what I call the click analogy is I want you to listen to the click, and like and I just want to uh, give you an analogy of how the temperature uh, is the rate, to give you the aspect of the rate, is like if you can hear the click, like the temperature back, the slide which we had seen, the 60,000 years of timeline, the temperature was changing, but in a very gradual rate. It was changing in. So if you could just uh, listen to the click, the interval between the clicks, we were really sort of, the temperature was changing in a very gradual fashion. But suddenly, after the post-industrial industrial revolution, the temperature started increasing faster, in a very faster rate. You know, so what does rate has to do with the thing? So since we already know that, like, the climate has been changing, so why the fuss now? That why are we so much concerned about climate change? Because the climate anyway had been changing in the past. So why are we so worried about it? Is is because uh, we are not being able to catch up uh, with that rate at which the temperature is changing, because evolution is a million years process. And what species right now, what the species that we see right now, say for instance yak in the Himalayas, it has actually, uh, the yak had to undergo a million years of evolutionary process to actually reach that optimal temperature where it is right now, and and it has been able to achieve that optimal temperature threshold. So that's why a yak could never survive in a desert. But then again, if the temperature starts increasing in a faster rate, then a yak will not be able to adapt to that change, that the rate at which the temperature is changing. So hence, coming back to the definition, that yes, the in the present context, climate change is not change in the temperature, but the rate at which the temperature is changing. Next slide. Yeah. So the rate of temperature change, what we could say is that the rate at which the temperature is changing could be directly correlated to the extinction rate of the species in the face of climate change. Is because, like, of course, if the climate is changing faster, so will the species will not be able to catch up to that uh, change, and eventually go through the phase of extinction. So what we can see is that there can be two uh, effects of the climate to the species, of the climate change. What could be the direct effect? Another can be the indirect effect. Direct effect could be where, like, the heat kill, where the temperature is directly affecting the species. And also another, to give you a classic example, is the African cheetah, where the climate is actually affecting the sperm count of the cheetahs living in because cheetah, and there's been abnormal sperm coil, because now the cheetah that used to hunt the Thompson gazelle is been affected by climate change. So it seems like the Thompson gazelle has a very good nutritional value it provides to the African cheetah, but due to its extinction, due to its due to the decrease in the prey, it is also affecting the reproductive uh, the reproduction of the cheetah as well. So we could that is one of the direct effect we could see. And another indirect effect is like how, there may be a species that may be dependent of food, and maybe a plant. So maybe that plant is again being affected by the climate. So there can be a indirect effect. The whole ecological the network could be disturbed, because to where all these species are actually dependent on a particular food. So that may be affected, that may be sort of been affected uh, by the climate change. Like, for instance, severe droughts could be affecting the the diet of a particular species. So that could be one of the indirect effects. Next slide, please. what has actually led to the sudden increase in the global mean temperature is the next slide. Yeah. So so the victim here is the greenhouse gas effect. Sorry, the greenhouse gas, and what we can see is like around 65% of the carbon uh, is is being emitted and is used by the industrial processes. So you can see that the major chunk of the greenhouse gas is uh, being emitted from the human activities. Yeah, and only a fraction, a few of them are being affected by are being contributed by the forest. Next slide. So just to give you a brief about and to help you understand the basic mechanism of climate. I mean the global warming. What we can see is like uh, you know the infrared that actually is that comes from the sun is actually the at our atmosphere actually acts like a blanket. So it is said that if we didn't have had an atmosphere, the earth's temperature would have gone down by minus 18 degree, and most of the areas where we thought would be hot would have been in ice. So I think the atmosphere actually has been the crucial factor of actually uh, maintaining life here on earth. But then again, too much of something of something is of something is dangerous. So to just give you the basic mechanism how it works is, you can see the infrared that is actually emitted from the sun strikes to the surface of the earth, right? And once this infrared emission actually, once it strikes to the earth, it is reflected back from the earth's surface to uh, the space. But then what happens is these greenhouse gas actually stops them and brings them back to the earth's surface, hence maintaining a certain temperature in the earth, so as to sort of so that the life is possible. So to just give you an analogy, if you must have experienced in a hot day, a car is parked, and when you travel, when you go for a shopping, and when you come back, you see that the inside the car is very hot. So the glasses of the car acts as a could be uh, uh, compared to the atmosphere, and then how the atmosphere actually helps in maintaining the temperature inside uh, the uh, the earth, or and in the car, uh, for the car scenario. Next. Yeah. So these are some of the adverse effects. Like these are what you can see in the picture is, there's like a lot of tons of carbon emissions that has actually been contributing towards the uh, towards the greenhouse gas effect, the greenhouse gas. And also what you can see is the vehicular emission is also one of the factors that has actually led towards these emission of greenhouse gas. And also this forest acts as a natural sink. All the carbons that is up in the atmosphere, uh, the forest acts as sponge to soak them back, thereby lowering the greenhouse gas up in the atmosphere. But what you see in the picture is that there is a mass amount of deforestation that is happening, due to which the sink, or what we call as the forest, is not being able to pull those greenhouse gas already there up in the atmosphere effectively. And also on the bottom right side, what you see is there is a as a what is the picture is from what is called as the Great Pacific Patch, which is as size, it is estimated, and these plastic garbage uh, is actually floating in the ocean, and ocean also acts as a natural sink uh, the carbon to soak in. So now you have this a country which is a garbage patch that is the size of Russia, that is floating across the ocean, and it's actually blocking the efficiency of the ocean to actually soak in that those carbons. So these are the uh, the global warming. Yeah. Another. Yeah. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah. So in the present context, what we can say is that it is a human-induced climate change, as it is as been actually because humans are responsible to alter the atmo- the the atmospheric state of the planet, and it is due to the burning of the fossil fuels and the unplanned burning of the of the fossil fuels that has actually led to the to the to the rising temperature, and it is purely the humans that is to be blamed. And some of the consequences of or the impact of the climate change is, next slide. Yeah, so you can see, there's a melting of glaciers. I'm sure most of you are aware of it, and there's severe droughts that's happening. There are farmers committing suicides because there is no proper yield, and you can see there is a mass migration of animals that's happening across the globe. And then also there is coral bleaching, and all the acidification of the ocean is happening. So all these are the effects that has been observed in all across the planet in bits and pieces. Next slide. Yeah. So the species that you see here is called the Bramley-K melomoides, and it is the first species to get extinct due to the human-induced climate change. It was officially announced in 2019 by the Ministry of Environment of Australia, and the reason why it got extinct was because its habitat was it belongs to it's endemic to one of the islands in Australia, and its habitat got actually wiped off because the rise of sea level. So next slide. Yeah, so hence what we can say is climate change is a global problem. It's just not a local phenomena. So our acts, what we can say is that what our acts and our dumping, reckless dumping of garbages here from the countries are actually being seen in the oceans. So we all are in this together, and we all uh, are it is a global problem, and we all have to take initiative in terms of to sort of work collectively in terms of of rectifying to the wrongs that we've done. So next slide. Yeah, so similarly, in 2015 there were the global citizens of the planet and from all over the country thought that this is a very severe issue, and then all the countries came together, and then what they call as the Paris Agreement, where they came up with uh, uh, the objective was to sort of cap. Since I already showed you in the previous slide that how the temperature is being now we are the rate at which the temperature is increasing from 0 to 2 degree. So the efforts now is being to stop the global mean surface temperature from rising to 2 degree uh, to up to two degrees. So that is the efforts, and that is all the countries have had come together, and so that we sort of minimize the carbon emission, and there are several
Ja,
yes,
ja, ka, ka. Chetu.
yeah. So
Na.
there are several sort of uh, 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 objectives that has been mentioned in the Paris Agreement, and that work towards uh, lowering the carbon footprint of the entire global citizen in the planet. And next slide. And similarly, with the same objective, we here in BNHS have also started a project started in 2016, and which is and where I am a part of the team. And like we've been working on the two bird on the Himalayas here in the eastern Himalayas, and we are trying to study the effect of climate change on the bird avifauna. And then we've selected two as a part of the project which I'm working. We have selected two different bird families, the finches and the pheasants, and we think that these two species could be the potential indicators because they are endemic to the highly endemic to the Himalayas, and they are broadly distributed across the Himalayas. So henceforth, like we've been studying the species, and hopefully the whole idea is to come up with uh, uh, to monitor them and to come up with some kind of a result. And we're still assessing to find out that if these species, the finch and the pheasants, are the potential climate indicator. Because as you can see, the finches are they are broadly distributed across the Himalayas, and they are also altitudinal migrants. So they'll help us to track whether the changing climate is actually affecting their the movement pattern, or like is affecting their the food in which they feed on. So, and similarly with the pheasants as well. Next slide. And also the finch and the pheasants, they are habitat specialists, and they have a preference for certain altitudinal range. So they are very dependent on on a particular altitudinal range. Hence, any changes in the climate would be affecting them. So henceforth, the objective is to understand their distribution and to understand if at all the climate is affecting them. So with that, I would like to end by saying that uh, human needs to adjust to the environment rather than trying to adjust the environment. And I thank you so much all for your time. And I just wish safety for every one of you, and hope you follow the protocols as per set for the COVID-19. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Atharva. That was a very insightful session that you gave. And I would now request you to Mr. Himadri Mandal, our our second host for the day. I would first introduce him briefly. He is working as a scientist A in BNHS on the Himalayas and climate change program in Sikkim region. For his PhD work, he has completed the PhD on the topic behavioral ecology of white-bellied herons. So, without wasting more time, I would now like to hand over to Mr. Himadri Mandal.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, but my slide is not visible so far. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot, Atharva, for the wonderful presentation. Now I'm going to start my presentation on birding ethics. I'm sure that all of us have seen birds, right? But can anyone of you know how many birds are there in the world? Well, I'm giving answer to that. Next slide, please. Let me introduce you all to one of the most beautiful creatures of this planet. Yes, I'm talking about birds. And there are more than 10,000 species of birds found worldwide. Next slide, please. Yeah. Uh, in Indian subcontinent, the number is 1200. That is almost 12% of the global population. Along with these 467 IBA, that means important bird and biodiversity areas are found in India. Uh, each year, a large number of foreigners come to India from different parts of the world, and they do not even need any visa or passports for this immigration. Yes, I'm talking about the migratory birds. They congregate in large numbers in different parts of this country. There was 371 bird species known to visit in India. There are about 50 species of birds found in India only and nowhere else, and these are known as endemic birds. There are 50 endemic birds found in India. However, not all birds are in good shape in our country. 93 threatened bird species are also reported from India. This includes 16 critically endangered, 20 endangered, and 57 vulnerable. This makes India a hotspot for several birders. In 2020, 2018 birders participated in the Great Backyard Bird Count and Campus Bird Count. Now, these led to the term birders. What are they? Next slide, please. The acceptable term used to describe the person who seriously pursues the hobby of birding. They can be professional or amateur. Water birding, a hobby in which individuals enjoy the challenge of bird study, listing, or other general activities involving bird life. I personally believe this is the best hobby an individual can pursue. It keeps you fit both physically and mentally. But there are some ethics that must take care of during birding. What are they? Let's find out. Now, when you go for birding, what should be the most important thing? Is it bird watching or to capture photos of these lovely species, or to ring them in order to track their movements, or to record their calls, or to play the recorded calls in order to spot them when they respond? Among all these, we often forget and lose our focus from the central cause of birding, that is birds. There will be no birding if there is no bird. So we must put the welfare of the birds first and manage our activities accordingly. Next slide, please. So for that, what shall we do? We must try to follow what birds want us to understand. Suppose you heard a doorbell. Just keep for a while in this particular mode. Yeah. Suppose you heard a doorbell when you are alone in your house. You go and open the door to find nobody. If this repeats for several times, you may not open the door again. Now, these call playbacks are often birds' mating call. So, if it is played repeatedly, the bird may not respond to their actual mate's call. Also, in this way, the entire breeding process of the birds can get jeopardized. Next, please. Another thing is that we must not go close to the nests. It may again disturb their breeding activities such that they may abandon the nests and their chicks altogether. Next. We must not use flashlight while teaching folks. This may scare the birds as well. Often the best way, next please. Often the best way to avoid such calamities is to keep safe distance from the bird territories. So the summary of the slide, please do not disturb them. They're already disturbed. Okay. Next, please. Birds often give us indication to keep safe distance, like upright posture. White-billed heron often use this posture to track threats or disturbances nearby. Next, please. Like this redwater lapwing, many other avian species use their distinct alarm calls to signal themselves and other species about any threats nearby. Next. When the bird is about to fly, you should understand that they have already tracked you and found you as a threat element. We also need to keep safe distance and restrict our activities whenever we see nests. Next. Threatened bird like this Bengal florican, and migratory species. Next, please. Like this black stork. Since more often than not, we appear as potential threats to them. Next, please. So what shall we do while birding? First of all, we should maintain silence. We should not chase the bird away so that they may leave the place. Next, please. So that they leave the place permanently that could have been their potential breeding or foraging ground for them. And next, please. We should touch them by our eyes and definitely not with our hands. And most importantly, we must not wear bright colored clothes while birding. So, what kinds of clothes shall we wear during birding? Shall it be like this? I really don't think so. But it must be like this. We must blend ourselves with the surroundings. We must be a part of the nature. Next, please. Yeah. Next, please. The next ethics, mindful of bird's habitat. Often, different equipment are used for birding, and we must take them back while returning from birding, like this binocular. Therefore, we also must not forget our binocular and spotting scope, GPS, camera, um, backpack, field note, ourselves as well, in fact. And most importantly, our trashes. Next slide, please. These trashes often poisons the birds, like lead poisoning, mold food poisoning, and poisoning by cigarette butts. Digestive tract of birds often get tangled by plastics and rubbers. In fact, the small birds can themselves get entirely tangled by these non-eco-friendly substances. Oils and grease spills in the water bodies can harm the plumage of the birds. The discarded food can often invite predator and illness to the bird. And gradually, these litters will degrade and kill the habitat for the bird. This is a picture of a Salimali Bird Sanctuary in Pune. The litter disposals horribly reduce the number of the birds in their sanctuary. So, what we must do to protect the habitat of the birds? Next slide, please. We must be responsible, reduce and recycle the litters, pick up and properly dispose them, be a good example, and share these tips and inspire others. In this way, we can keep our planet clean and green. Next ethics, obey government laws and public right. We must enter protected area with proper permission. Every protected area has several rules and we must know and follow them accordingly. We must not enter others' property for birding without owner's explicit permission. And we must follow all the laws, rules and regulations in roads and public places. Yeah. Next ethics, our attitude towards co-birders and non-birders. What shall we do? We must practice courtesy and interaction with others to expand our list of contact. We must be courteous, respect the interest, right, and skills of the fellow birders. We must be a birding ambassador by sharing the excitement and knowledge with non-birders. And we must keep our findings intact. What we shall not do? We must not try to disturb other birders. We must not talk or call unreasonably during birding. We must not scare the birds what others were watching. And we must not keep our knowledge only to ourselves. Next slide, please. So what's the moral of the story? We must know the bird, understand them, love them, put welfare of the bird first. We must be watchful, You must be patient. It must definitely be silent. You must be responsible and careful, and in this way, will definitely be rewarded. Otherwise, we will have to face our own karma. Thank you. Thanks to you all.
Uh, Thank you very much, Himadri, for such a wonderful slideshow. And we would now request you all to post your questions in the chat box so both of our speakers can answer your queries. Thank you. So the first question is from Bishal Thakuri. I read somewhere that the effect of climate change will be more in tropical region biodiversity than the temperature. Any insights on this? Atharva, if you can hear me,
Yeah,
you can.
yeah, yeah. Is it about? Did you mention temperature in the end?
I will read again that the effect
Yeah.
of climate change will be more in tropical region biodiversity than the temperature.
Then the temperature.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he meant by temperate. But
Yeah.
I think, yeah. But I think yes.
Hello.
You cannot quantify like hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yeah, please
Yes,
go
yes.
on.
Yeah. 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 So I think it is not. We cannot quantify that, like, how the effects are going to be, because, like, just to give you a perspective, what is happening in the tropics is also affecting the up here in the Himalayas. So I think it is not a local problem, and it's not. I mean, the impact, we cannot quantify it because it is happening. It may be happening in a very micro level as well, or in a level where which we still we have not come to a point where we know that, like, the level of quantification, because, like, it is not a phenomena that, like, one day we are going to wake up and then we realize that the whole climate is changing, but it's happening in a bits and in a clustered effect, like, so, to answer to your question, I guess, uh, we there hasn't been any sort of a proper, I mean, like, a quantification where we can say that, like, the effects are, because there might be a species that is actually a very may not be so much important to our side, but then again, in which, like, the whole the ecological balance would be disturbed if even a small species is affected. So I think it's very hard to, since it's a open system that we live in, and, like, it's a very stochastic environment. We don't know, we cannot predict what's going to happen. So I think, as of now, I'm afraid I would to mention that, like, if the temperate or the tropics are going to be affected, I think all both the zones may be affected in their own way, but then, yeah, it'll be hard to quantify whether, which one is going to be severely affected or not. Yeah.
Hello, Viraj.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Atharva.
Yeah.
There is another one question. Like global warming will melt glacier, then the water in the ocean will increase. Then the water species will get harmed, or it will be good for them.
I think what we are already witnessing now is that, like, there is already coral bleaching that's happening because due to the acidification of the ocean. So I'm sure there is already a adverse affecting that is happening due to global warming. So yeah. So eventually, even the species that living in the oceans are being affected.
I think this is last question. Okay, so thank you Atharva and Himandri for wonderful webinar, and I hope all participants have really enjoyed this webinar. So anything else,
Thank
or
you.
you want to have more questions, then you can put in our WhatsApp group. According to your questions, author will, speaker will help you to give your answer. Thank you very much. Again, Himandri and Atharva. Now we will be close the meeting. Thank you again.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.